difference in the disparities that we're talking about daily. I also I co-lead and help with our public policy at United Way of Delaware. So I am the one that will be fighting for, again, the disparities, making sure that we're in Dover, we're talking to people, and we're bringing about the public policy change that needs to happen in order for us all to live in an equitable Delaware.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies, so much. And we're going to just jump right into it. We just said we're living through some unprecedented times. So my first question is going to go to Tierra. You know, each time I talk to you, and even just looking at you right now, talk about what your role is at United Way of Delaware, you're very passionate. I can hear and sense the passion in your voice. And your goal is really to fight towards eliminating racism, or at least decreasing it, and fight for racial justice, right? So why are you so passionate about engaging in the movement for racial equity and social justice? And what lessons have you learned so far?
Well, the truth of the matter is, Dr. G, is unfortunately and fortunately, I have no choice but to be passionate. Because of the color of my skin, I worry about my brother, cousins, father, significant other every day. So I can't take a passive role in this, because every day people that look like me are dying from being incarcerated and losing their life in that way. We're talking about people dying from health issues, when Black women are 2.5 times more likely to die of childbirth than white women. When we talk about we talk about killings, we talk about the murders, the cold-blooded murders by police officers of young Black men and women. When we talk about not even just the killings from police officers, but killings within our own communities for various reasons, all of those affect me, and they affect people that look like me. So for me, there's no question of my passion, because I have no choice but to be passionate. I have no choice but to be Black, and therefore live with the consequences that being Black has in America. I think that the lessons that I've learned, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So nothing's going to happen fast. It's going to happen with consistent and persistent people. And I think that comes to my next lesson, is that it's going to take people, a lot of people, to work together to create in different ways. There's room for everybody in the fight. Some people are going to march. There's March on Washington, right? Some people are going to march, and that's where we need you on the front lines. We need you marching. We need some of the people that aren't afraid to, burn down buildings and say, no, we need the attention. But then we also need people who are policymakers, who can write, who are in the background, making sure, trying to say, if this policy doesn't work, well, this is our alternative. This is what we should present. We need people that are willing to be the faces and talk. We need people who are willing to have tough conversations with their friends, family, and relatives, and start at an individual level. And so I just think that those probably are the two major lessons that I've learned, is that it's going to be a marathon. It's not going to happen fast, but it can happen. And two, we're going to need everybody. Everybody's going to have to get their boots on the ground, figure out what they're good at, figure out what they can bring to the team to make this better, to make this change happen.
I like the idea of what each person can bring to the team, because like you rightly say, it's not going to be an individual thing. It's got to take all the ideas and all the personalities and all the expertise to really get into this fight. But one thing that you were saying is, when it takes people and the killings within our own communities, in your own experience or as a community leader, what is it going to take for us to really educate our community? Because when I think about it, it has to do with our environment, how we've been raised, how we've been brought up, and how we've been treated, and we've conformed to that norm or what they consider the norm. How can we begin to move outside of that and change our mindset so that we're able to, again, trust those who have done this to us? What would you say as a community leader to that?
Dr. G, honestly, if I knew the answer to that question, first of all, I would probably be a millionaire. And secondly, we would like no more oppression because we'd be there. But to be completely honest with you, there are a couple things that are so important that I believe, and this is again my very humble opinion. One is that we have to take back our education. It is our duty to make sure that we're educating our children to know themselves. When you know yourself, you know who you are, you don't do certain things. You're not going to do things to harm yourself. If you know who you are, you're not going to do things to harm people that look like you. When you know who you are, because you love yourself and you want to love others. When you are dealing with levels of self-hate, when you're dealing with levels of not knowing who you are, when you're dealing with all the levels that have happened because of being African American in being Black in America, then you know it's difficult. It's difficult to not have these issues. You would expect us to have some type of issues to be Black and being Black in America. And so all that I can say is, again, in my humble opinion, I think one of the first steps that we can take is make sure that we know thyself, understand, research, and start to learn who you are, who we are as Black Americans. And when you learn who you are, then you start to love yourself and you love others. And therefore the internal happenings that happen within our community can start to lessen. There's a lot more to that, right? Because some of it is institutional, some of it doesn't have to do with us. But at its core, there are some things that do. There's some things that we can help. And so you'll always hear me really focus on education, probably not focus on education in the same way as others are, because when I say educate, I mean parents educating their children. I'm saying you learning for yourself and relearning a lot of things that we've been taught in our public school system and in other ways.
I agree with you. Education, my mother always said, education is your first husband. So whether it's coming from your parents, your colleagues, your teachers, it takes a village to raise a child. You know, whoever can contribute to raising and moving anybody forward, it's a plus. But I really like the idea of the identity, because once you have self-identity, you become more confident and you can really command what happens to you because you have that solid foundation. So thank you so much for that response. And with that said, Becca, I have heard very many people talk about reverse racism and discrimination, such as the statement, what about white people who work really hard? Now they can't get jobs. That's not fair. Why should whites be punished? So give us your perspective on that, and and then shed more light on, does being inclusive mean standards should be lowered so that people of color can get in, advance, or make it?
Before I address that, I kind of want to, and I should have done this at the beginning, talk about why I, as a white person, do this work. So I would say probably about 6 years ago, someone lent me The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. And as I was reading the book, I got to the point where they went over policies, different presidents, and they got to President Clinton. And President Clinton was the very first president that I ever voted for. And it stopped there. I never paid attention to any policy that were put in effect. The crime bill, had no idea until I'm reading this book. And I thought to myself, that's my responsibility, right? Like that onus is on me to participate all the way through. If I'm going to vote for a president and I believe in them, I want to make sure they're putting policies into effect that lift people up and not tear people down. The crime bill ripped apart, Black communities throughout our country. It's I don't even want to say it's heartbreaking. It's disturbing. It's wrong. But a lot of that is how we've been established as a country itself. So I just kind of wanted to say, because a lot of times people say, why are you here? What do you do? You know, you're a white woman. And the truth is, does this affect me on a daily basis? Absolutely not. Can I relate to Tierra and those feelings? No. But to your point, when we get to a lot of white people do like to say, I worked hard. I wasn't handed anything. I didn't inherit anything. My parents were immigrants and they cleaned schools. And when we talk about, you know, that difference in, sorry, I'm looking for the exact word that you used, life being hard. Yes, life is hard for all of us, but it's even harder if you're a Black person in America, right? It doesn't discount that other people, that white people have worked hard. That's not the point of it. You know, it's kind of like Black Lives Matter. The point of it is the journey is harder with the exact same level of education or where you were raised. The statistics show us Black and brown people suffer disproportionately, even if the move is to middle class or upper middle class. That doesn't often stay there. Often the, you know, children of individuals, they are, you know, they don't succeed as much. And why is that? Our system is not designed for that. And to your next point, I think you talked about, it being inclusive, right? And lowering standards. Absolutely not. We shouldn't lower any standards. What we should do is open up the barriers so that everyone has an equal footing to reach those standards. There's a meme or a picture a lot of people have seen, and it talks about, you know, it has the different boxes, right? But then you get, there's one that I actually have on my wall because it talks about the fourth one. There's no more boxes, there's no more gate, and it's liberation, right? It's everybody having access and being on that exact same playing field. And our country wasn't designed to promote anyone but white males, if you really want to talk about. I mean, you know, and obviously as a white person, I've lived off of a lot of that privilege, but our Constitution, our country was written by wealthy white men. And so we're still being guided by those laws, and we're still being guided by older white men making our policy. If you want to look at the composition of the United States of America's Congress and Senate, there are very few, although they get a lot of attention, there are very few women and people of color making those important, valid decisions that can actually move us in the right direction and make us a more equitable society.
Absolutely. I hear several things from your response. I hear an all boys club still exists. I hear the value of lived experience, and you rightly said it. You as a white woman cannot really you can empathize with the stories and with the passion that you have, but you truly have not lived that experience. You know, I can relate to Tierra in a sense, but I have not lived in a racial society until I came to this country. Even though I come from humble beginnings and we have our own style of cultural differences, it is different. But when I came to Delaware, I was reminded and welcomed to realize that racism truly exists, because upon arriving in Delaware, going to apply for a job, I was told I could not apply for that job in that particular institution because of my accent and because I was a woman and an immigrant. And I had to take a pause for a second, because I'm like, whoa, this truly exists. But it taught me a lesson that if you truly want change, what my father always taught us, that change must begin with you. So I did not only not apply for that job, I decided to go home on that day and made sure all my T's were crossed on my resume and my I's were dotted, so that they will not have any excuse to not give me that job because I had the credentials. You know, so that goes to say we all have our perceptions and preconceived notions. And this might have been this young lady's experience. Had I not had self-identity and believed in myself, I probably would not have gone for that job, but I did. And I ended up getting the job and would work for that institution for 15 years. And together we learned about our differences, our values and beliefs, and grew together. But when we are brought up not to believe in ourselves, like Tierra said, sometimes you're going to fall into what others think or what others make you believe you are. And that is what's happening with this whole racial fight or racial equity, because we've been told we're less, we've been treated less, we've been dehumanized. And for that reason, we succumb to those beliefs. So it is truly an honor that we are doing this and that we're in fighting to move this needle forward. So to follow up with your response about inclusion, I believe that resources have to be provided. And I also agree with you that we should not make things less or standards less to include those we consider people of color or Black and brown people. It should be the same standards. However, what can we do for the different organizations and workplaces to create an environment where these people will survive, where they will progress, but yet bring value to the table? Because we want them to bring some value. And I always tell people, when you come, make sure when you ask for a seat on the table, make sure that you are bringing value. What would you say to business owners and organizations? What can they do to be more inclusive when they bring people of color, Black and brown people, to their organizations?
That's a great question. Well, to your point, Dr. G, when you talk about having a seat at the table, I think now we need to understand that having that seat is not enough, right? The voice in that seat needs to be listened to. Because for, I'd say, a couple decades now, we've been giving the seat at the table, the one seat. But the fact is that that voice isn't listened to. It's just symbolic. So I think, and businesses, smart businesses have learned this a long time ago. If they have various voices at the table, they're a lot more successful because you do have those different experiences. And sometimes things happen and I can see, let's just talk for an example, a conference designed. And I look at everything now through a racial equity lens, good or bad, that's how I see things now. So when I look at a conference, I look at who are the speakers, right? Like, are there any speakers of color? Are there any speakers with different experiences? Are there any Black and brown people? And often what I end up knowing is that there was no one else at that table to say, this is not representative of our community. So you are really just trying to attract a particular type of person. Right? You're not making that, you're not opening that door where people would be, interested in being part of that. And so I think to become more inclusive, I think people need to be educated about themselves. I think the first couple of days we talked about self-identity, and the ironic thing is white people don't think of themselves as a race, which is because white is the norm, right? Like that's the level of what our society is. We are just, white is it. White's normal, and anything below white is less than. And so we need to get to the point where that's not the way we look at things. That's not the way things are designed. But right now, everything works exactly the way it was meant to. I mean, our criminal justice system isn't broken. It was designed from the 13th Amendment to continue to put Black and brown people in jail and slavery. I mean, our policies are literally designed. We want to talk about the shooting of unarmed Black men. Everyone saw, like you said, Dr. G, what happened to George Floyd. And my friend said to me the other day, how can this be happening over and over again? Well, the truth is, even in Delaware, it could still happen. There's a Bill of Rights, LABOR, it's the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. It protects them from everything. Okay, so this weekend, actually, I'm part of one of the task force, and it's on transparency. And so my job this weekend is to go through the actual LABOR bill and make recommendations about how we can break that down and make people responsible. I mean, how is it that any human being can kill another human being 7 shots in the back and not be held accountable for that because they're a police officer? There's video that that's murder. At the end of the day, nobody should be held nobody shouldn't be responsible for those actions. I don't care what kind of outfit you put on. I don't care if it's a badge and a gun. At the end of the day, like, you're killing people, and our system's designed to protect individuals who kill Black people, Black and brown people in this country. And so we have to get to the root of that. We have to get those policies pulled away. We have to make cops accountable. There are, I was on a panel the other night with a recently retired law enforcement officer, and he continuously talked about the culture within law enforcement organizations and how it's paramilitary and how you just don't go against the grain. And it's within the culture, it's built that way, and they protect each other. So I know I went off on a bit of a tangent.
Oh, that's fine.
Really about inclusion.
Yeah. You know, to follow up with that, so do you believe then that police reform is the answer to that?
Well, I mean, we need to have reform in every one of our pillars, but police reform, absolutely. And when we talk about defunding the police, we don't mean we're going to get rid of police. We mean that we're going to have more resources for individuals that don't need the police, right? If you have a drug addiction, if you're in the middle of a domestic violence incident, you don't need the police. You need help. You need counselors. You need ways out of those situations. And so, yes, I think police officers need to become more responsible for their actions. And I think we'd see a big change if that were the case.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm going to move over to Tierra again. And the issues that you just discussed vividly kind of bring in my mind the idea of white privilege. And, you know, I've been in places where some say, well, we all have the same privilege, right? But it is not truly the same in some people's mind. So it is evident that many people struggle and suffer because of poverty, gender, and other forms of oppression. However, there are real structural barriers that exist for people of color in this country. That often means they must work many times harder to succeed or even survive. So Tierra, how would you respond to a white person who says, people of color have to take responsibility too? I haven't had it easy and I am white. I overcame many obstacles in my life through hard work and a positive attitude.
Well, Dr. G, the truth is that I would say I do partly agree with them. I do think that it is our job and responsibility to make sure that we are actually doing our due diligence and playing our part. I think that we all have a responsibility to, as we talked about before, educate. We have a great responsibility to educate our children, understand who we are, and understand what is happening in America, and make sure that we are actively fighting against that every day. However, there are just some things that just aren't the same. You can't tell me as a white person that you are dealing with the exact same issues and you got through them with a positive attitude. It doesn't matter how positive you are if you are, again, I'll go back to the statistics. Black women are more times likely to die, 2.5 times more likely to die during childbirth. Something as natural as childbirth. You can't tell me that Black women are just bad at having children. That's not true. So there's something going on there. And if all things being equal, that is still happening, no matter what someone does, then I mean, what responsibility are you going to take from that? What am I going to do? Now, the only thing that I can do is to, one, either dismantle the injustices of the system we currently have, or two, I guess maybe have more children at home. But the truth of the matter is that there are some things that we just can't help because of how systemic and structural racism has been placed in America. And really the only way out is to start to think about not just reformation, but dismantling of the current system to create something new that is inclusive to all people. And it creates the equitable society that I hope all of us would like to see in the future.
Awesome, awesome. You know, when you talk about that, what came to mind is this whole COVID-19 situation.
Yes.
With people of color, you know, being overwhelmingly affected and died from COVID-19. And these are conditions that could very well be prevented. But because of the system, how it's set up, and the comorbidity factors that we often have as people of color, that put us at more risk of dying from COVID-19. But these are things that can be prevented. So in your opinion, as a young leader in society, in the community, what is it that can be done to kind of help with some of these disparities? What type of education? I know you're very big on education. What can we do?
So, I mean, when we talk about especially what happened with COVID-19, and United Way has been very involved in that. That's why we created the I Choose campaign. So part of it, again, is taking personal responsibilities. We need Black and Brown people to make sure that they are taking all of the precautions they possibly can. But then we have to notice that there's just some precautions that can't be taken because what we are seeing is not about precautions. What we're seeing is about flaws in a system that have been the case, but now they're exasperated because there's a disease. So we're talking about Black and Brown people that are more likely to have jobs that are considered essential because they're working at grocery stores and places like that, where they're working hourly jobs where they have to go in, they can't work from home. So they're putting themselves and their families more at risk. We're talking about Black and Brown people that are more likely to have some type of underlying health condition, such as when we talk about high blood pressure, diabetes, those types of that make you more at risk to not just catch a virus and be okay and be able to recover, but catch a virus and be very incapacitated and potentially die. And so what we're seeing here is just an exasperation of the conditions that already are. And, you know, unfortunately, again, Dr. G, you asked me these great questions, and if I knew the answers, like I said, everything would be great. We'd be living in a utopian society. If I had it, I would give it. I would give it all up if I could. Yeah. But you know, I am a firm believer in really taking a hard look at the systems that are in place and starting to chip away at them one by one. I'm a hard believer in making sure that we all people come together, figure out what our strengths are, and each person playing their role in their part in creating a new tomorrow. I'm a firm believer of looking at the whole picture, because when we look at the whole picture, we know we look at the environments, our neighborhoods, we look at the access to fresh food and who's living in food deserts. We're looking at the access to healthcare and whether having insurance is something that people can even afford to have. We look about the access to childcare and early education to make sure that our children are learning to critically think so that when they become adults, they can make smarter decisions as far as their health and all of that is concerned. And they can also be a part of our team when we talk about we need people on the team to help us make change. And so, I mean, it's all of that. It's all of that. And I just, I guess daily, I just hope that we make strides in the right direction by, again, chipping away at it one at a time, knowing it's a marathon, knowing that every step we take and every step in the right direction is a great one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I like the idea of economic empowerment, because how can you expect people to behave different, have access when they have no source of income, they have no resources? So economically empowering them by providing equitable jobs, equitable pay will make a big difference. So I hear you loud and clear, and hopefully our audience are hearing us and can join in on this fight. And for those of you watching, if you want to go ahead and continue to share, these ladies are phenomenal and they're giving us some real worthy information. So, and I do not see any questions on here at all. So with that, I'm going to go over to Becca. We have just talked about, you know, inclusion and all of that. And we know that studies have proven, as all of us will agree, we all have some form of implicit bias in our minds. And that can truly impact our actions in the world. A common example is microaggression. What are your thoughts about this? And what would you say to someone who says, I just see people as people. I don't see black or white or green or purple?
To that last point, I think that's extremely disrespectful, okay? Because what you're not seeing is a person. And I think we need to respect, and I'm sure, and I don't know if you're familiar, but there's a painting that Eunice Lafayette did that's called The Melting Pot versus the Salad Bowl. And so we've always talked in this country about how America is this beautiful melting pot. But the truth is, for America to be truly beautiful, we need to celebrate everything in the salad bowl, right? The tomato brings a special flavor. The onion brings a special flavor. The carrots, craisins, whatever you want to put in, we all bring something different to the table. And when it's interesting because often people think that white people are not affected by racism. And what white people often we lose out on an entire culture that we don't understand or have real relationships with in our society. So it's to the point where we all need to celebrate each other. That I don't see color. I mean, that's like saying you don't see him wearing a purple shirt and a white blazer, right? Like that's ridiculous. Of course you see it, but what you want to say is when I'm wearing this, someone might be like, oh, that's a nice necklace or whatever. You want to find that beauty in every single one of us and celebrate that difference. I think that's the biggest thing is we need to celebrate those differences. And I think I'm sorry, we weren't doing that.
What were your thoughts about us having implicit bias?
Well, I mean, that's a guarantee. We all have it. And so it's something that I think we need to work really hard to be aware of. And we talked a lot about microaggressions. What I'd like to tell people who really want to be, and I talk predominantly to white people who really want to be in this work and want to change, you have to be open to getting that feedback, right? Being a white person in this work is so humbling because I'm never going to get it all. And so when people correct me or people say that's not the most great way to say that, I'm open to that. I listen to it, I think critically about it, and I go, that's absolutely right. And Dr. G, like you, we do a lot of inclusion and diversity classes within the YW and then outside the YW. And so one of those things is even if you want to go to the point of a microaggression, like you throw like a girl, you want to take race out of that, right? Like how many people have said throughout their life, you throw like a girl, right? And we don't think that's a complete microaggression. What does that mean? Girls can't throw? This is ridiculous. I mean, honestly, look at some of the softball players, they whoop butt any day. So, I mean, and that's just one that you want to take away from race. There are so many microaggressions like, you speak really well. Like I am married to a Latino man, and often when he walks into a room, if he doesn't know anyone, people expect an accent, right? People expect him not to be as educated, and he consistently gets, oh, you speak really well. You're really smart. You're really intelligent. And what that means is that expectation isn't there for him to be that way anyway. So no one says to me, oh, you speak really eloquent. No one's ever said that to me in my life. Maybe I don't speak really eloquently. I don't know. But I mean, those are experiences, that we have that are just implicit bias. When you were talking about the medical system, one of the studies they did was that Black people are prescribed painkillers less than white people. I mean, that's kind of basic. Black women in childbirth. I mean, even Serena Williams, right? That woman, you can't even take class out of that. Her doctors didn't listen to her, right? And that's just a discounting and disbelieving in your opinion as a white person is more valuable than an individual as a Black person actually having those experiences. So, but they have proven, Dr. G, if they've gone through and they've done some implicit bias training within the medical system, they've proven there used to be a lot more amputations, and they find when they go in and they actually educate the doctors about the stats that that's exactly what happens, is that doctors can improve, but they need to be made aware of it. And I think that's what it is. Part of this challenge is a lot of white people being made aware of their implicit biases.
Yeah, that is definitely so true. And then another thing, I remember when I was still working at the hospital, people initially, when I just got here, when I had braids like Tierra, they'll come and say, oh, is this real? Is this your hair? And they're touching it. And so it's just like you're such a normal human being or something, but it definitely exists. And what do you say to a person who's a white person, Becca, who says, I don't know how to start these conversations. I'm interested in the racial fight, but how do I begin the conversations?
That's a great question. You begin the conversations by listening. And I know that seems very odd, right? Like, a conversation, you're going to talk, but no, you need to literally not think about what your next response is going to be. We need to really listen to each other and try to understand where all of those feelings are coming from. And they're coming from legitimate historical places, but they're also coming from personal places. And so honestly, if you're a white person and you really want to change things, shut up and listen.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree. So I want to be mindful of time. We're good. So this question is going to be for both of you, and either one of you can take it. You decide who goes first. So there are different forms of racism, and racism can be interpersonal, institutional, systemic, internalized, and the rest, right? But research has shown that racism has a psychological burden on people of color, even passing it down through genes. What would you ladies say to a person of color who says racism doesn't impact me?
Dr. G, honestly, it's laughable to think that as a person of color that racism doesn't affect you. You talked about it as an immigrant of color. You have a different experience than mine. But the truth is that when you landed on America, before you open your mouth, everyone just sees you as Black. And because they see you as Black, you deal with the same repercussions, consequences, and all of the disparities that Black people have. I really talk a lot about our healthcare system because to me, healthcare is something that you can really say it doesn't matter. There's no class differences. Well, there are class differences, but I'm saying is if you're a Black woman, it doesn't matter, or a Black man, it doesn't matter how much money you have. The doctors are still having this implicit bias. They're still dealing with issues that are around race. And Becca talked a lot, talked about a great example with Serena Williams and the issues that she was having during the birth of her child, and right after, when she was trying to get back into her sport. Is, she's telling the doctor that I'm really in pain, and they're not listening to her, as if she wouldn't know whether she was in pain or not, as if she's not a world-class athlete that has fought through pain, and she would know, like, hey, well, this is the difference between a 5 and a 10 in pain in the pain scale, and you need to pay attention to this. And so when you talk about people who obviously have a lot of money, obviously, she's married to a Caucasian male, so it has nothing to do with she's farther away from, let's say, the Riverside and Wilmington, right? So she's far away from that, and she's still dealing with that same issue. And so my point is that I just don't believe that anyone can, being Black or a person of color in America, I don't believe that you can ever not deal with racism in some way, shape, or form. And dealing with racism doesn't mean that someone is actively calling you the N-word or actively looking at you and saying you can't do this because you're Black. Racism in America looks like you just never getting a call back from a job that you were highly qualified for, or you never even being looked at in the first place for a job that you were highly qualified for. Racism in America looks like you being stopped over and over again by the police for driving a really expensive car. Racism in America looks like walking down the street in a neighborhood that you live in and being accosted or questioned as to whether you belong there. Racism in America means that maybe they didn't question you, but they drove past wondering whether you belong there and might have called the police or neighborhood watch. And maybe you didn't think anything of it, but that's what's happening. And so I err on the side of caution. I don't ever want to seem as though I think that everyone's racist everywhere. In every situation, there's racist undertones. But I mean, we have to be aware, and we have to have an understanding of it, because there is no change that will happen without it, without the understanding, awareness, and acknowledgement that these things are happening. Mm-hmm. So that's my take.
Being racially aware, being aware of your own self and your own racial thoughts can go a long way.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, Becca.
Okay, so the psychological burden, we know it's been proven throughout history. All of our experiences do get passed down DNA wise. And so to say that you're not impacted by trauma, I'll be very honest. I'm never going to tell a Black person that racism exists if they tell me it doesn't, right? That's not that. I mean, I can sit down and have an educational conversation with you and point out systemic racism in all of our systems. But if you don't feel it exists and it's not your experience, I will tell you that's my biggest challenge in all of this, is not talking to white people, is honestly a Black person saying to me, there's no racism. I don't have an argument for that. I can't speak to their experiences. I can only speak to what I have learned and what I have studied and what I have, the conversations that I have had. So that when it comes to that, I'm not going to really have that particular conversation. You know, but trauma's there. Trauma's there in all of us, no matter what our experiences are. And let's be honest, the traumatic history that Black people in America have had is really there. It's, you know, when we want to talk to hypertension and, you know, go right back to healthcare with Tierra, that a lot of that is, right? That just is, that is actually handed down. Diabetes, if your parents had it, you're more likely to have it. You know, and we know that pain often manifests itself in physical ways. You know, women that have been sexually abused, we know that there are physical things that come from dealing with pain. It's just the way our body works. If we don't deal with it on an emotional and psychological level, it manifests itself in pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Mind, body, and soul. It comes back to haunt you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm just going to take a minute here to remind everyone that has either signed up for my course or have not heard about our diversity and cultural sensitivity training that is coming up September 22nd. Enrollment is currently going on. It's a 6-week online cohort. We meet every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. and you do get a D&I certificate at the end of that training. And this course is really helping you as a leader, as a church leader, community leader, business owner, or leaders in corporate to learn how to leverage your diverse talent and build diverse, inclusive, and unified work culture so that all your employees can thrive. And in the long run, you get more employee engagement, job satisfaction, global impact, as well as return on investment. So if you have not already signed up, you can check out our website, eunityeducation.online, and sign up for that course. It's going to be phenomenal. We have taught this for 3 years for individual companies, but we're taking this online so we can do more people at a time. So the first cohort is September 22nd. Enrollment ends September 11th. So please take advantage of it. Reach out to us. We can answer your questions and help you out because this is more needed now than ever before. We need to lock arms and we cannot let this opportunity slip through our fingers. It has been an honor. We did not come here today to talk about politics, but we cannot finish this without talking about politics because that's the only way we're going to help to continue this fight. So how important is voting to you ladies? We are not, you know, we saw the thousands and thousands of people on the March on Washington for freedom and jobs. And for those who have been killed, those who have been shot, those who have been dehumanized, you name it, yesterday, demanding for change. We cannot get change unless we go out and vote. So what do you say to those who are watching us today, ladies? What should they do when it comes to voting? Like VP Biden says, it is election for the soul of this country. What would you guys say?
I think sorry, I was just looking because we kind of asked that question in the 21-day equity challenge. So I was just kind of taking a look there. And we can talk about some of those answers. I think it's a basic civic, I think it's a duty, it's a basic civic duty to vote. How important is it to me? You can ask my niece who has to take a picture at 17 to tell Aunt Rebecca that she voted. I literally have everyone in my family do that. I'm like, I want pictures. And that's just the first step, right? I think like kind of like I talked about is I voted, right? I voted for the first time at 19 for a president, but politics at the end of the day, it coincides with policy, hence the term, right? And so politics is really important and it's important to get out there and make your voice heard and vote. But I really encourage people to, even after that point, to really pay attention to those policies and hold those people you voted for accountable, right? We know it's political season. Everyone talks about they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And then they get elected and it's, where are those promises? You know, you can't just turn around. And that's what happened to Black America forever, right? We're going to put this policy into effect. We're going to do this. And then election time comes and it's gone. It's like, it's too hard. We couldn't get everybody in the southern states to agree. I mean, the women's right to vote only went to white women, even though there were amazing Black women in that fight, like Ida B. Wells. And the reason they got that through was they sacrificed the southern states wouldn't vote for it unless Black women were pretty much excluded from that policy. And so I think, honestly, and there's a huge trust issue between Black women and white women, and it's valid. It's a completely valid trust issue. And so I think if we can build that trust and those bridges, honestly, women have a much more powerful voice in politics because we are more engaged. We run campaigns. For a long time, we were the women running campaigns, and now we're running for office. That has changed, and that's amazing to me. And I think we need to look at representation, right? We talked about, you know, the entire country. Dover looks great. Let's get more down there. Let's get more voices from diverse areas, because Black and white people are not a monolith, right? Like we, whoops, there are people that don't, Black people that don't believe there's racism, right? We need that voice too.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree.
I think I have to agree with Becca as well. You know, voting is just step one. Voting is very important, and the truth of the matter is that you know, I respect, Dr. G, your view of your quote in the beginning that we're voting for the soul of this country by the VP. But the truth of the matter is it doesn't matter who you vote for. And that is not important. What is important is that you're educated and you understand who the individual that you're voting for is. You're understanding the policies that they have put in place, the policies that they believe in, and you understand what their background is. And that's step one. That to me is the real step one. Before you even go to the voting booth. So many times have I seen people who go to vote and they have no idea who they're voting for. They have just heard the name or they saw a sign. And they're picking people who have a great sign. And that is something that I would rather you not vote than to go and vote it down a ballot just because you have seen the sign. So that to me is step one. Step two is, yes, actually going to the poll. But to be honest with you, that's the easy part, right? And that usually doesn't take that much. Most people get off work, some people don't. And that's a whole other issue that we could talk about, because when we talk about people that are hourly employees and they cannot get off of work, or they have to take time off of work to vote, that just proves more inequities in America. Especially because most of those people are Black and brown individuals. Mm-hmm. And then step three, more than anything, for me is, again, holding that person accountable. It doesn't matter whether I voted for you and you seemed like a nice person if after a year, after 2 years, you are not doing what you said you were going to do. You are not helping the people that voted for you. And so we have to do more in the sense of educating ourselves even after how government works, and making sure that we understand the processes that are in place. We understand when someone is lying to us. We understand if someone is telling us the truth and helping us to make these things happen. That is so, so important. And then, you know, lastly, again, I think I'll go back to being educated in the form of voting. You have to be educated to understand that it's not just, the presidential election is really great, but the presidential election is not what is changing people's everyday lives as much as we think it is. The truth of the matter is that even when you look at COVID, you notice that each state, each governor had the capability and they were forced to create a direction for their state. And it looked different than the federal government's ideas. And so that, to me, that in of itself is a great example of us making sure that we know who our governor, our senators, we know who our local people are, so we can make sure that they are also moving in the direction that we want to see. And it's going to look different for everybody. Everybody's going to have different opinions and want to vote for different people. But I respect an educated vote more than anything else.
Awesome, awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard it. You have got to register to vote. You have got to be educated on who your local representatives are, from your district to the state offices. And once you vote for them, hold them accountable. Have a reason why you're voting for them, because you have studied their policy, you have understood what they stand for, and you're also inviting your kids, your family, your friends to go out and vote. And if you're not able to go out, please get your ballot sent in the mail on time. Just in case the post office is going to delay, we know for a fact that there are things that might be put in place to delay mailing system. So please do that ahead of time so that we're not put in a situation where we're being lied to. We're Black people, we're smart. We understand when you're trying to lie to us. So do not take us for granted. But please, ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, make sure you go out and vote. But as Tierra reminded us, educate yourselves on the candidates before you actually go out to vote. And please vote. We cannot stay home this time. We stayed home 4 years ago and look at what happened. We're dealing with leaders who tell us to go back to our shithole countries. We're dealing with leaders who stand up and lie and curse on national television. Please, let us do this for our children and for our children's children. Let us leave a legacy. We may not be here to see the results of what we're fighting for, but our children can say we could rest in peace knowing that we left a legacy for our children. Yes, Becca, you wanted to say something?
I'm sorry, I just needed a disclaimer. Dr. G, United Way of Delaware and YWCA Delaware, we are nonpartisan. So the truth of the matter is that as a representative of the United Way of Delaware, I have to say, although your comments are very much respected and that they are important, I want to say that that is in no way representative of United Way of Delaware or either of our two organizations. What we think is important is civic engagement, period. And so for us, it's about the overall civic engagement. I said this before, I don't care who you vote for. If it's an educated vote and you believe in the person you vote for, and then after you vote for them, you are actually holding them accountable for policies that you believe in. And hopefully those policies include equity for Black and brown people. That's something that I personally believe in. I hope that other people believe in that too. So I hope that you believe in those policies as well. But the truth is that, you know, again, I don't care whether they're Republican, Democrat, Independents, whoever it is, it's not, I don't care about that. That doesn't matter. And that doesn't matter to our organization. It's more about the candidate and who they are as people and whether they are going to fight to make sure that disparities in Delaware are eliminated.
Awesome. Awesome.
I was just going to give out some dates. Thank you, Tara, for that disclosure. Appreciate it. So you have until October 10th to register to vote in the November 3rd election. Unfortunately, time has passed for you to be able to vote in September 15th, the Delaware primary. But make note, if you are registered, a lot of those races will be decided on September 15th. For example, the mayoral race in Wilmington, there are no Republican candidates. So September 15th is the election. People need to know that. Often, if I knock on a door, people aren't aware of what a primary is. And so that's one of the things, when she talks about being an educated voter, that's one of those things you need to be educated about. Also, if you go to Vote 411, which is run by the League of Women Voters, and you put in your zip code, it will tell you everyone on your ballot, and many of the candidates have filled out the form and answered questions, so you can become educated right there about what's on your personal ballot, which to Tierra's point is super important of knowing, becoming an educated voter. So you can go to ivote.de.gov to register to vote if you're not, and go to Vote 411 if you're registered and just want to know more about the candidates, because it's a lot of work to research them. And so I appreciate the League of Women Voters doing that.
Awesome, awesome. So do you ladies want to go ahead and share some info about the 21-day challenge and how those who still want to join can join the 21-day challenge? I am loving it, and it has been an honor serving with you ladies on the Racial Equity Collaborative with United Way and YWCA, and it has been an honor to have you all today. So let us talk about the 21-day challenge.
Yes. So the 21-day challenge is, I'm so excited. This has been such a pleasure and so exciting to work on. This has been one of my favorite projects Well, today we talked a lot about racism, and one of the keys to racism is understanding and conversations and knowledge. And this 21-day racial equity challenge was created to do just that, to really create some understanding, some knowledge, to create this habit of learning something new every day when it comes to racial equity. We could all learn something new, no matter what color, race, anything we are, about racial equity. And when we talk about racial equity, this particular challenge talks about the Black American experience. We know that there are a lot of nuances for when we talk about equity, but this one for right now talks about the Black American experience. And at its core, what it is every day a participant receives an email on a specific topic around racial equity. We started this on August 17th. It will end on September 14th. We're doing 21 business days. We do business days because we work with a lot of organizations that, and we have a lot of people on the challenge that are using their business emails. And so we want to make sure they get them. Also, Dr. G, I think you said you're catching up on a few. Weekends give everyone a chance to catch up. So that has also been we didn't know perk, but an unintended perk of having it during weekdays, but it gives people a chance to catch up and really be a part of the challenge. Every day a participant gets an email that has anywhere from 3 to 4 challenges. They're able to pick one and explore it, or we have some overachievers that are looking at every single challenge that we put up, which, the challenge is supposed to take anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes. It's totally up to their personal preference whether they do that, but we only ask you to be a part of it by just picking one and just taking at least 5 minutes of that day and just understanding something a little bit more about racial equity in America. We have over 7,600 people signed up right now from all over the world, which has been amazing. We have companies as large as DuPont and nonprofits we have nonprofits that are small as have like 3 people shops. So we have companies that are thousands of people that are sending it across the world, and we have 3-person shops that are working on this every day. And we have over 150 organizations that are signed up. And I don't want to even begin to name them because I will definitely miss somebody and people will be angry with me. But we are so, like I said, so excited. We're on Monday, starts day 11. So we're about halfway through the challenge. If people want to sign up, they still can, and they can still catch up from, if you go to our website, which is racialequitychallenge.org, and they are able to check out the toolkit that has our social media posts and the topics. They're able to check out previous days' challenges. They're able to kind of see how it works. If they don't remember, they can read through how it works. They can see who the organizations are who are a part of it. They can see their names. And so, like I said, we are beyond thrilled and excited. And one of the best things that have come out of this challenge has been our conversations. We plan to have a virtual or a few virtual kind of town hall type of discussion around the equity challenge in the next few weeks. But one of the best things that have come out is our Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group for those who are taking the challenge. Becca did a great job in curating questions to help that go along with the challenge to help people to broaden their understanding and give them an opportunity to share. And it's been just an eye-opening experience for so many, including myself. Becca, what did I forget?
You didn't forget anything. No. I suggested to a group the other day if they wanted to go to the website and tell their whole team, hey, let's go do day number 1 right now, because we're on day 14. If they want to start at the beginning, that information isn't going anywhere. We're going to keep that website up. So feel free to do it with your friends or other organizations. And if you want to start at day 1, it's all there right for you, right? So you might have to go to the link, but it's there and you can join that and you can join our conversations. What I love about the Facebook page is people are being super respectful. And I say that in a way that these conversations aren't easy and you're typing things out. And so I expect it'll probably a little bit more friction. But again, at the same time, I realize the people that are doing that really want to learn and really want to do the work for the most part. Everybody's not going to get everything. For example, I asked the other day, what was the racial composition in your neighborhood? And someone on there randomly said, why, right? And so I didn't respond to that, but it was just a thought, right? What is the racial composition of your neighborhood? I mean, I can tell you right now, it's predominantly white in my neighborhood. And so that's something we don't think about. And again, how segregated we are. We still live in very segregated areas. And that was just, that question was just kind of I just wanted people to think about that. And there are diverse neighborhoods, and that's amazing. I wish all of our neighborhoods were diverse.
I saw that why, and I thought the same thing. I just smiled right through it. Yeah, but it's some really smart and intelligent question, but respectful. There's really no arguments on there at all. So it is people that really truly want to learn. And I am so proud to be on this journey with you all and my company, eUnity Solutions. We're not a big company, but I have 5 people that are doing this with me, and it has just been exciting, and we really love it. And we will be doing debriefing at the end as well on the Truth with Dr. G. So I invite you all to come back. Let's have this conversation again. It is something that I'm very passionate about, and that is just based on my journey, because I've had challenges and along the way that have really brought me back to think, wow, I come from humble beginnings, but life is truly a journey, and you're going to meet all these challenges. But like I always said, you have to have a framework that you live life with. And my framework has always been my 5 Ps, what I call Dr. G's 5 P formula, which is your purpose, your passion, your patience, your persistence, and your perseverance. Once you have something to fall back on and living life on purpose, you will survive the storm. And we're going through a storm right now. It's been a storm for 57 years since the I Have a Dream speech by Reverend Martin Luther King, but we're still going through it. So life is still happening. That's why I say we have to continue fighting the legacy, like John Lewis left an assignment for us. We have to continue the fight so that our children will not say we did not do it for them. Right. We may not be here to see the result because it's a marathon, but it's not an overnight. So let us just continue the fight. Let us be who we are, but hopefully one of these days we will be a society where it's more of a salad bowl, and agree to that concept more than a melting pot. So with that said, ladies, I honor you, I celebrate you. If you have any last words, go ahead and say them, and after that, we'll close the show.
I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. G, for having us, myself personally, and I love what I do at YW. Our mission statement is eliminating racism and empowering women, and we get up and do the work every single day. And so I'm really proud to work for an organization. So thank you for having me, and thank you for letting us share our journey with you.
You're welcome. My honor.
I want to say the same thing. Thank you so much for having us. I cannot say thank you enough for asking some questions, for being open to all of our answers, for participating and actively participating in the 21-day racial equity challenge, and to encouraging others to do so as well. We think that the 21-day racial equity challenge is a great step in the right direction, understanding, learning, and hearing more about people's experiences when it comes to racial equity, especially around the Black American experience. We believe that, these conversations will be building blocks and sparks that will hopefully light up Delaware and potentially the nation and the world around these conversations and sparking change. And so we hope that this is just the beginning, but it's been a heck of a beginning. And I just really want to thank the 7,600 people that have believed in us, all of the people that send us emails about when we don't quite get something right or telling us how they feel about things. I welcome them all, and I'm so excited and humbled by this experience of how many people want to learn and have a true desire to really learn about racial equity. And so I guess all I can say is thank you on behalf of United Way of Delaware, on behalf of the Delaware Racial Equity and Social Justice Collaborative that has over 100 members across the state, and we get more every day. And all else I want to say is to join the fight. Find what you're good at, what you can contribute, learn, and join the fight. Figure out where your niche is and do it every day, every single day. And that's how we're going to create change. And that's how we'll have more of a salad bowl America. That's how we will be able to appreciate each other's differences. And that's how we'll be able to create equity and eliminate the disparities that are happening in Delaware and across the nation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. And again, ladies, I am honored to have had you as my guest. Open invitation, call me, come on anytime. If we have something we want to talk about, feel free to come back. This is our platform. Our goal is really to promote, culture, diversity, and inclusion. So anything you want to talk about, feel free to come on anytime. I'll be honored to host you guys.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your weekend and be blessed.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone who's watching.
I know we didn't have that much. Yes. Bye, ladies. And I did put the Delaware Racial Equity Challenge.org on. So for those who will watch later, can go on and sign up.
Great.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.